presenter. He was in the vessel traffic session yesterday. He flew in last night. Steve Gabeline with Aleutian Island Shipping Alternatives Planning Criteria Program, Fact versus Fiction. So Steve, take it away.
I'm Stephen Gabeline with the Alaska Maritime Prevention Response Network. We do the alternative planning criteria in the Aleutians and throughout the Western Alaska and Prince William Sound, capped in the port zone. And I'm going to talk about our programs. We're an Anchorage-based nonprofit that provides federal alternative compliance for non-tank and tank vessels. Some of the topics I'm going to cover today are, which you've already heard a little about, but what an APC is and where it's found in regulations. I'll go into a brief history of APCs in Alaska, the network's strategies and capabilities, and current challenges with APCs. So a little bit on the regulations. It is found in federal regulations for oil spill prevention, subpart D for tank vessels, subpart J for non-tank vessels. An alternative planning criteria is defined in federal regulations as an option for vessel owner-operators who believe the national planning criteria is inappropriate in areas where the vessel intends to operate. They may submit this request to the U.S. Coast Guard to meet VRP requirements. A very short history of APCs in Alaska. They've been around for over 20 years, starting with Alaska Petroleum Distributors and Transporters. Starting in '92, those were oil barges, all the way up to the current network tank and non-tank programs for Western Alaska. And then going into why an APC is necessary in Western Alaska. As you are all very, very familiar, first and foremost is the sheer size and remoteness. This inaccessible area has a vast coastline that is home to pristine ecosystems that support commercial activities and subsistence. Can you hear me? All right, sorry about that. As well as traditional subsistence way of life. The lack of infrastructure due to minimal seaports and airports create significant logistical challenges in mounting responses in Western Alaska. The operating environment is extremely harsh, and effectiveness of mechanical oil spill recovery is already very low. Pair this with harsh weather, and it makes for an effectiveness of only 1 to 6% for offshore oil spill mechanical cleanup. Also, there's a economic consideration. Sorry about that. An economic consideration to be had. Full compliance in the Aleutians is projected to be at over $50 million a year just for the Aleutians. And that high cost, what it will do is drive vessels to go to non-U.S. ports. And by doing that, they go on what is called innocent passage, which means they can go through the same areas of the Aleutians and not have to follow any U.S. regulations. They can go as close to shore. They can do anything they want without following U.S. regulations. So that's something that has to be looked at and taken into consideration. Combine all of these resource gaps, tyranny of distance, infrastructure limits, and high full compliance cost, deems the NPC inappropriate and an APC necessary. As a nonprofit, the network focuses on reducing the risk of marine casualties and oil spills. The network is led by a board of directors who are representatives of the owners and operators of the vessels that operate in Western Alaska seeking compliance. We were established and are administered by Alaskans with over a century worth of practical experience in Alaska's unique maritime environment. The network is the only APC provider that provides coverage throughout the entire Western Alaska capped in the port zone, as well as Prince William Sound capped in the port zone. By this approach, it allows the network to provide a comprehensive program that is cost-effective and ensures a straightforward compliance option for thousands of U.S. flagged and foreign flagged vessels. As a nonprofit, the funds that are collected are reinvested back into the system to increase response capabilities, as well as risk mitigating measures. One of the main recommendations that came through the Aleutian Island Risk Assessment was for an optimal response system. This was to be a single nonprofit entity that would monitor vessel traffic, ensure risk reduction measures are in place, and increase resource capabilities. And to overall create a straightforward approach to compliance. To go into the risk reduction strategies, the network, the key focus is preventing an oil spill in the first place. It has been said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that could not be more true in the far reaches of the Aleutians. The network's risk reduction measures have been approved not only by the U.S. Coast Guard, but stakeholders throughout Western Alaska and Prince William Sound. The success of the network's original operating procedures and routing measures were taken into account and ultimately set the framework for the IMO, or International Maritime Organization's, Aleutian Archipelago areas to be avoided. These areas consist of a 50 nautical mile buffer around the Aleutians and channels the vessels through 4 approved passes. These passes are the widest and safest to navigate. Another aspect of the risk reduction measures is the implementation of a maritime domain management system using 24/7 vessel tracking and monitoring. This 24/7 monitoring is performed by the Marine Exchange of Alaska, and the network watchstanders interact with vessel masters and ensure routing measure compliance. They facilitate route deviations with sector anchorage and the vessels. And they also provide awareness on what we call vessels of concern. These vessels can fall into many different areas, as far as they might be broadcasting not under command via their AIS. They might all of a sudden drop to under 3 knots, and that's kind of a number that we kind of pick out of the sky, but usually when a vessel that normally transits at 18 knots drops to 3 knots, there is a problem. So we are able to quickly send out information on those vessels in distress, find out what's going on. They might just be on a weather delay, or they might just have a quick engine repair. So here's a graphic showing the network's coverage area. The light blue shows the Western Alaska capped in the port zone. The darker shade there is Prince William Sound. You'll see that these yellow hubs, as you heard a little bit yesterday from Chris Burns at Shadow, these are Alaska Shadow's 17 response hubs strategically placed throughout both Western Alaska and Prince William Sound. Again, you probably heard a lot of this from Chris Burns yesterday, but the network's OSRO partner, they have over 23 years of experience in Western Alaska in oil spill response. They possess the largest amount of in-state resources, and those are a couple of their highlights. A big thing they have is a MOU with Alaska-based OSROs in the case of a catastrophic oil spill, which allows for sharing of response resources located throughout the state. They also have agreements with lower 48 response organizations to cascade in out-of-region resources. What would be here, or should be here, is a picture of our 146-foot oil spill response vessel, Sea Strike, that was just signed on this year for the network. And also a 270-foot oil spill response barge, Kittiwake. That's a 23,000-barrel temporary storage capacity. And I can show you pictures after this, once this catches up with it. Another aspect of the network that we're very proud of is our research and development program. With thousands of ships transiting from Asia to North America, it is bound that one will break down or go dead in the water in a remote area. The network looked at this scenario and worked on developing a response tool that can be used in such remote areas where response vessels may be days away. The ship arrestor takes a drifting vessel turns it into the wind and dramatically reduces its drift rate. It's a mechanism to buy time, which allows for the crew to effect repairs or for an assist vessel to arrive on scene. The ship arrestor is currently in anchorage and ready for deployment. Some of the current issues that the network APC is going through is different approaches by the U.S. Coast Guard. On the left, you'll see the network currently is approved for the entire Western Alaska Captain and Port Zone, as well as Prince William Sound. With that approach, it's very straightforward. The areas are defined in federal regulations, easier to understand for the many foreign flag vessels, and it allows for resources to be spread throughout the region, not only in high traffic areas, but also remote low traffic areas. On the right, it's a little hard to see. There's some orange sub-areas. These sub-areas recently APCs have been approved for just certain sub-areas. And what this does is it creates confusion, as these sub-areas are not defined in federal regulations, and rather the state of Alaska is currently working on changing these zones and boundaries, which makes it challenging to have federal regulations based on changing state regulations. And it also strands resources. With the sub-area approach, it's only focusing on high traffic areas, and it forgets low traffic areas that present the same risk, which most of the time is in the Arctic, which has a significant amount of increasing ship traffic. The network is the only non-tank and tank APC program north of the Pribilofs and into the Arctic. It is extremely important that Alaska not only know what is going on in the Arctic with this increasing ship traffic, but also have risk reduction measures in place, as well as response capabilities throughout the region. The network features all of these programs as part of their non-tank and tank programs. Quickly, as I've talked about, sub-areas are not defined in federal regulations. There's a risk to long-term APC viability and harm to Alaska capacity, and that's mostly due to overall confusion with inconsistent approaches. And then stranding remote areas without resources. That's what we're trying to avoid, is having a broad approach that allows many villages to be prepared for an oil spill. To summarize key takeaways, the network is the only U.S. Coast Guard approved APC provider in the Western Alaska and Prince William Sound Captain and Port Zone. It's modeled directly after the Aleutian Island Risk Assessment, aligning with their optimal response system. Funds are used to build resources and continue build out of resources, invest in new risk mitigation and response technologies and procedures. With the network's OSRO partner, we hold the largest in-state response resources and capabilities. And also the reminder that risk mitigation needs to be the emphasis in Western Alaska and especially in the Aleutians. Prevention is key to preventing oil spills. And not all gaps can be eliminated, only mitigated, and that could not be more true in the Aleutians. No matter how much boom you put on shore, it's a harsh environment to try to prevent it from hitting the shoreline. And the network's goal as a nonprofit is the safety of mariners, protection of the environment, and oil spill pollution prevention compliance for vessels operating in Alaska. That was the quick rundown on the network. Thank you very much.